Hello, podcast listeners. This is your host with the most, and let's pretend that we are roommates together right now. That'll make this podcast all the more enjoyable as we chat with Jon Leiseth about directing The Roommate at Theater B, roommate experiences throughout our entire lives, and why my wife is slowly killing me with the laundry she preps in our home every day. But first, a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. Natalie has a proven track record to get your home sold faster and for more money. She is consistently focused on her clients' needs and wants throughout the entire process and make sure that they are well taken care of. If you're looking to buy or sell, reach out to Natalie today. On average, Natalie sells a home every 3.74 days. That's at least 2 a week. And last year, Natalie earned her clients on average over $4,000 above list price on their homes. And you don't have to take our word for it. Here's some of the great reviews Natalie has received. I was overwhelmingly impressed with Natalie and all the Hatch team. She was very responsive and responded to all of the emails within an hour. She gave great advice and encouragement from the listing and pictures, the offer, and all the closing details. The marketing team knew exactly how to promote my property, and I was pleased by how soon and easily my property received an offer. I was actually dreading selling my condo, and Natalie did such an awesome job that I felt like I really didn't need to do anything. The thing I most appreciated was that she really listened to what I wanted to do and respected my decisions. I would definitely recommend Natalie and all the Hatch Realty team. They made this process so wonderful. That was from Diane. So listen, if you're in the mood to buy or sell a home, give Natalie a call right now. You can reach her at 701-388-9338. Natalie, Natalie, at hatchrealtyfm.com, or you can go to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com and find out some information. Huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring JJ Meets World.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones, in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled, and he's fun and then he twirled as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called JJ Meets World.
I guess you would call my wife my roommate right now, and my roommate and I will argue about laundry. She's on a big kick where she uses vinegar in everything. So she washes our clothes in vinegar, and she says, if I don't, it smells. We have a front-loading washing machine that's what they're known for.
Doesn't it smell like vinegar then?
Well, so that's the thing. She uses a small amount, and every now and then I will smell my clothes, and I think that they smell like vinegar, some residual vinegar.
Yeah.
And she says, there's no way, I'm making it up. It's not possible. And we had a discussion recently where I said, stop washing my clothes. I'll wash them. I'll do it myself.
Were these was this the situation where she had just kind of started doing that? Or did you both sit down and divide?
Oh, she started doing it.
She just started doing it. Just started doing your laundry. That's what I mean.
She loves laundry.
Okay.
For a while when we were dating and we lived in an apartment that did not have laundry in the unit, it was a communal laundry.
Yeah.
We sent all of it to her mom's house, and her mom did our laundry because that's what her mom wanted to do. Mm-hmm. Right. So that is the hardest part of being married so far, is that we disagree on little things like that. And for example, the color of the sheets. We don't have big disagreements. It's not about giant blowups about money, and nobody's cheating on the other one. But if you buy flannel sheets or replace my squishy pillow with a flat decorative pillow, I get pretty perturbed. And so I'm glad I don't have to do that with another human being who I haven't chosen to spend my life with.
You think it makes it easier because it's your spouse?
I do. I also think that I'm not going to win. She's going to continue washing things with vinegar.
Right.
Because when she puts a load in, that's what she's going to do.
Even though you can tell her, please don't. I'll just do mine. I'll just do mine on my own. She'll be like, nope, I'm going to continue to do yours, regardless of how you feel the smell.
She will. And I think this is where the needle dips more towards her. it would be one thing if all the laundry in the house was either hers or mine, but there's a lot of communal laundry in the house.
Like what?
Sheets,
Oh,
blankets,
I see what you mean.
bath mats, towels, washcloths, these things that are all used by the whole house. So she's doing more than half of the laundry. And so because she's doing more than half of the laundry, she gets domain over the laundry
It's like
room.
if you're on a road trip and you're the one driving, you get to decide what plays for the radio.
You pick the music. So that's my current roommate situation. Today on the podcast, we have Jon Leiseth. And with Jon, he's directed The Roommate, which is at Theater B through the end of February.
Yep, starring Carrie Winterstein and Pam Strait,
And we
previous
get to
podcast guests.
talk about the show itself. And the show has got a weird kind of universal appeal because at one point in most people's lives, they've lived with somebody else, whether it's a complete stranger, whether it's a friend or a relative, whatever it happens to be, you've had to cohabitate somewhere. And during the discussion, we have a lot of fun talking about previous roommate situations that we've all been in. Tucker and I even touch on a small time in our lives when he and I lived together. You also get to hear about a sermon that I'm giving at a church.
Right, you get a sneak preview. It'll have already happened though by the time you hear it.
By the time this happens.
It's a post view. It's a sneak post view.
Yeah, and many of you didn't drive to Hillsboro United Methodist Church, so you get a little taste of that here. But sit back and relax. I'd like you to enjoy this episode with Jon Leiseth. And then don't forget, you can go to theaterb.org, book your tickets to go see The Roommate. If you're listening to this anytime after the show is closed, go to theaterb.org anyway and find out what great shows Theater B is doing right now.
We do 4 shows a season, so chances are when you go to our website, we've got one in production.
And then tell them that you would like JJ to be in another show. You can just write that to them by physical letter because it means more.
JJ Meets World.
Welcome to the studio, Jon Leiseth.
Yes, you
And
got
not
it.
Leiseth.
Not Leiseth.
But there are some people in town who say Leiseth.
There are, and they're actually probably pronouncing it correctly.
But you're leaning into the Leiseth. I like that.
You know, I'm like a third generation Leiseth. I got to hang on to it.
I think that's kind of cool. It's you're setting your own identity in that particular way. So you don't go out to the Leiseths and be like, hey, I'm Leiseth.
No, I don't.
Good for you.
But, you know, between my middle name and my last name, one or the other always gets mispronounced. I use my middle name when I do theater work, and it's Micheels.
Oh.
And it's spelled Micheels. It was my great-grandma's maiden name.
Really?
Yeah. So it's a way of hanging on to my mom's side of the family, too, when I do artistic creative work. But between the two of them, at least one is usually mispronounced, if not misspelled. Or
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
What a cool way to do that.
Yeah.
Recently, you directed The Roommate at Theater B. It's
I did.
playing now if you're listening to this podcast close to
Yeah.
the release date. Tell us a little bit about the show.
Yeah, so the script is by Jen Silverman, and it's a two-hander, so there are only 2 performers in it. Carrie Winterstein and Pam Strait, who are both ensemble members at Theater B, are in the production, and they're awesome. The script itself is the story of 2 middle-aged women who, in their own ways, are starting over. One is recently divorced, lives in Iowa City, and advertises for a roommate. She's never had one before, ever. And the other woman moves from the Bronx and shows up for the first time ever in Iowa in order to be that first woman's roommate. And so it's kind of The Odd Couple meets Breaking Bad is one of the ways that
interesting.
critics have talked about it. So
I think people are drawn to roommate stories because they're sort of universal.
yeah.
Most people have that experience at one point in their life where they live with a friend, but the intimacy of being roommates is something that's much more sharing space together.
Yes.
Is something entirely different.
Yes, it is.
Some of my favorite roommate pieces of all time. Obviously, The Odd Couple is a great one, and The Odd Couple I think is still as popular today as it was when it was first written, because it's so you have both sides of the coin. You have the ultimate dirty bachelor, and then You have the gentleman who enjoys clean and order and cannot stand the
Right.
disorder.
Right.
Golden Girls, another great opportunity for roommates to be together.
Which seems to be more popular than ever these days. Golden
Yeah,
Girls.
what
I
is-
see it on Facebook like almost daily, it seems.
It's too bad that only one of them's still alive.
Right?
To like enjoy this renaissance, this Golden Girls renaissance that we all are enjoying right now.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, if I had to think of another great roommate story out there, well, I mean, Frasier is another one that's where the parent comes back is another great piece.
Yeah.
So
Roommate stories make for great sitcoms, is what you're
they
saying.
really do. They
Yeah,
really
right?
do. And on NBC, NBC has nailed down the roommate dynamic with their television programs. When you approach something like this, so you're going to be working with Pam Strait, Carrie Winterstein, both previous guests on the podcast.
Yeah.
And both amazing, strong actresses.
Absolutely.
Is it hard to say, okay, I want you to ratchet things up and also dial things down? Was their approach to the script kind of what you envisioned right off the bat?
Oh, those are there. You asked like about 15 questions,
and you
there.
answer whichever one you
Yeah,
want.
right. I'll just start. And I'm going to go through a side door at first instead of the front door of your questions. One of the fun things about this production is that we considered casting it either or both ways. There was actually a time early on when both of the actresses were interested in potentially playing both roles and shifting kind of halfway through the run of the show. And when Theater B did its season announcement event at the Hamcombe Center, they actually played the opposite roles. So I guess I bring that up to say I was open to either of them playing either role. So I wasn't set in terms of, oh, this is the way that it has to be. I think eventually, boy, there are so many questions in the question you asked. I have enjoyed thoroughly working with both Carrie and Pam. And yes, I think it's true sometimes when you're working with someone who has a lot of experience, and they're also company members, and I'm a guest artist, so I'm a guest in their home. It could be possible, and I imagine is sometimes possible that, that those artists are set in their ways, but that's not the case with either Carrie or Pam. They were both from the get-go, really interested in what I saw and what I heard, and my being fully participatory as opposed to being, the butler who just kind of like serves coffee and opens the door as they enter into the rehearsal space. So that's been an incredible joy. And I think another part of that joy of working with people as experienced as Carrie and Pam is that they're always bringing something to the table. I mean, they're always trying something. So there are always options to respond to. There's always something within that performance that's alive and vital and worth considering. Does that make sense? As opposed to something that's kind of just half tried. Anything that they try, they can pull out the stops and give it a full go so that we can respond to it and think, reflect on it and figure out, well, how does that work, or what does that work, or in what way does that open up the story? So I think those are a few of my answers to your question, that it's been fun to play because they are so experienced and because they make such strong choices. I do think that one way in which this script is tricky is that it's not just an out and out comedy. It's not just funny. There are certainly undertones from the get-go where these are two human beings that are awkward with one another because they don't know each other. As I mentioned earlier, they're both looking to kind of start their lives over, and that comes from a very real, and I think it needs to be relatable place in terms of that longing to start over. And if it becomes just purely comical, then I think we can dismiss it pretty easily as audience members because it can just be entertaining and then we can just push it aside. And what I've loved about working with Pam and Carrie is that they've been interested in that line as well between funny and not funny. So to get back to another part of your question, JJ, yes, there have been times where we've had to figure out, oh no, that's just too funny. Because if we go down that route in terms of the comedy, we're not going to be able to come back to the depth of the longing or the awkwardness or the kind of humanity of it, if you will. There's even a stage direction right in the beginning of the script. Jen Silverman writes, "This can't just be farce." She puts it right in the stage direction. So right from the get-go, the playwright says and recognizes this can't just be funny. Otherwise, it's not the story as it's been written.
What's your personal roommate history?
My personal roommate history.
And you can walk through it chronologically if you'd like.
Well, I'm a massive introvert for one thing, and I grew up on a farm out in the country. So I never shared a room growing up. I just have one sibling, an older sister, and grew up, out in the country. So there's lots of space, and I grew up in a family of introverts. So it was pretty quiet. And
it sets you up as someone who appreciates private space, I assume.
Absolutely. So
I've been without a roommate, I think, for at least 10 years or so. And I have trouble even imagining going back. I can imagine having a partner that I live with, that it's a different relationship.
That's a different thing, though.
But I think I would really struggle with just even a friend just being my roommate and having to occupy the same space. I probably have a problem with that.
Yeah.
I need, get away from me. I need to be alone, please.
Yes. So I'm a graduate of Concordia College. I'm an alum. And when I first arrived at college, one of the classic family stories that's become lore is that when my parents brought me and we were moving in, I actually wanted to they wanted to keep the door open. My mom was really encouraging about, you can meet people right away. And of course I was just petrified. And I was like, I would rather have pulled out my toenails. And, I actually needed to shut the door in order to unpack my underwear and put it away in a drawer. I mean, so
your dorm experience was a private dorm room? Did you?
No,
have a
I
roommate?
shared it. I shared it with a guy from rural North Dakota, and we had very little in common. And at the end of the day, I mean, nice guy. We had a very civil relationship, but eventually we were moving in very different social circles and had different interests and.
I think that there's
that was my first roommate situation.
Right, and it's interesting to me because that roommate situation becomes you're sharing space. You're not sharing there's no relationship there, right? It's like the person.
There wasn't really much at all.
Person you work next to, the cube next door,
right? I mean, it began with some shared experiences because, of orientation and floor activities and those kinds of things. But it wasn't long before we literally were just sharing space. It would have been later in my college time where I was sharing life more with some of my roommate circumstances. But
in the first scene of The Roommate, you watch these two characters basically navigate that new reality.
Right.
They're both, neither of them have really had a roommate.
Yeah.
Gary's character says it right away. I've never had a roommate.
Yeah.
And they're both in their 50s.
Yeah.
Right. And so this is like a brand new moment for them, and just watching the two characters just navigate those little uncomfortable moments of, oh, I'll take this up to my room. Oh, that's okay. I've got this kind of milk I'm going to drink or what have you. And watching Carrie's character.
Oh, I arrived with my own pots and pans.
Exactly.
Oh.
Watching Carrie's character realize that a stranger is now going to be cohabitating her space with her.
Yes.
It's fascinating.
And then Pam's character as well. It's like, you don't lock your doors? What do you mean? I don't get it. Can we lock them, please?
And that's the kind of the fun of the roommate. The first time I had a roommate. Now, we had a lake place when I was little, and my sister and I shared a bedroom in that lake place. It had a cardboard accordion door.
Oh, nice.
Which was the only thing that blocked us from the living area. And my parents had a bedroom that we shared a wall, but they had the same accordion door.
Yep.
You know, a potbelly stove is what heated the whole place.
Yeah.
So my sister and I were in very close quarters until, gosh, I want to say I was maybe entering high school and she was still in middle school. And at that point, you know, we're sharing a bunk bed with your younger sisters. Like, nope, this isn't going to go anymore. I'd rather sleep. We had a guest cabin that didn't have electricity that I would go and hang out in from time to time.
Yeah.
But the first time I had a roommate is out of high school. I moved into an apartment with a guy I really enjoyed in high school who, through the time we were roommates together, I found out I don't like this guy. It took living together to find out that we were not
He doesn't listen to the
friends.
podcast.
I don't care if he does. I don't care if he does.
It's a very different circumstance to live with someone or not. I mean,
It's the little things like, so you're living on your own and, you know, cash is tight. And I remember my mother taking me out to the Outback Steakhouse for dinner. And it was nice because it was the first time that week that I had had like a substantial meal that wasn't like cereal or ramen noodles.
Yes.
Trying to watch my pocketbook. And she got me this like dessert, this brownie with like big scoop of ice cream on it. And I put it in the freezer. I brought it home and I'm like, put it in the freezer. And the next day I came out and both of my roommates are sitting on the couch and I don't even say good morning. I'm just like, I come out and I head towards the freezer and I open it up and the box is in there. I pick up the box. It's too light. It's too light.
Yeah.
I found out they had gotten high the night before. The night I brought home the brownie and pulled that out, and they're like, oh, look at this awesome brownie, and ate it. And that was the point where I was like, I don't want to live with other people.
And was the box totally empty?
Yeah, but they put it back
that's
in the freezer.
worst. I mean,
Right?
if you're going to eat all the food, then please throw away the box.
Right.
Yeah.
They did it to me with a lasagna once too.
Yeah.
And that really pissed me off.
Yeah.
So, and then even when we moved out of that place, previous podcast guest, I won't name him. He knows who he is. Left his room and was like, it was dirty and disgusting. And he was a smoker. So there were cigarette ashes everywhere. There was a used condom that was in there. And so this roommate who I'm no longer really friends with went in and like cleaned the room. And he said, I'm going to keep this other guy's security deposit if we get anything back. And I remember thinking like, as the three of us who came in there being like the three best friends, now a year later, we're like, screw you. I'm getting out of here.
Yes.
And it was kind of amazing just to feel that because all of those little choices, the people we dated, the parties we didn't tell the other people we were going to have, the John Mayer goddamn music that got played night after night after night after night. And you just learn you learn that you can cohabitate with some people, but you can't live with everybody.
Yeah, there's a big difference, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking about my most recent roommate experience. My family, I have a wife and we have 2 sons and a dog. So I'm talking now
So
about
you have 4 roommates.
non-family member roommates. We lived overseas for some years, and when I moved back earlier than the rest of my family. And I contacted a friend who lives just a little ways away from where I was going to work, and because I didn't want to have to dive right in and buy a car, I didn't want to have to worry about getting an apartment. I was going to be looking for a place for us to live as a family. I didn't want to have a high pressure situation there. So I contacted a friend because I knew that she had a bedroom upstairs in her attic and said, can I live with you for a few months? I'm certainly willing to help to pay, but it was a very temporary situation and it wasn't a living situation, right? It was very temporary. It worked out really well. And I asked her because she is also an introvert. She had also lived overseas. So she knew something of what I'd be experiencing in terms of, the reverse culture shock and those kinds of things. But there was no intention of like this being a long-term thing or
upon entering her home
Yes.
to live, did you give a finite date of when you would be out of there, or was it open? Like
That's a good question.
Kind of a calendar based.
I'll have to ask Mary Jane, but I think that we looked at a calendar and we said, well, we'll give it a go until this time, and then we'll have a conversation. So we had an agreement, in terms of it'll last until this time, and then we'll go from there.
My wife and I had a good friend who lived with us for a little while, and it was sort of, you need a place to stay until you kind of pick up and you figure out what the next step is.
Yeah.
And then a year and a half later,
it was still happening.
It was still happening. And it was never a bother to us at all, because he hung out in his room, and, we always had someone to let the dogs out, and we had somebody to watch the house when we went
That's
on
amazing.
vacation.
Are you an extrovert?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, he is.
Big time.
I'm like a year and a half.
Yeah.
He was in the basement, right? So it was like,
No. He lived in the bedroom less than 20 feet from our bedroom.
Gotcha.
Wow.
Up on the second story. And what's funny is, so he moved to California, and we missed him the whole time he was in California. When he decided to move back, we said, well, you can come and stay here until you figure out your next step. Came, stayed for a little bit, got an apartment. The apartment he got, he didn't enjoy, moved back with us.
Yeah.
And so it was like back and forth. And then we had his cat for like another 4 months. And the true irony here is we sold the house to another friend of mine, and that dude is still living in that bedroom.
Wow. Kind
he
of like
stayed
a
with us.
cat that stays with the house.
He's like paying rent now, and we never charged him any rent. And it's interesting because my wife's a big Judge Judy fan.
Yes.
And she said, listen, if we ask him to pay anything, he, by law, gets tenants' rights, which means we have to, essentially keep this place up to code, and we have to provide a parking space and all this stuff that if we charge him anything, we are now liable for that. And so I was like, well, we'll just not charge him anything and just treat him like as a live-in house sitter if we need it.
Wow.
And so because I would have been like, give us $100 a month. That way there's some value on it. And
Right.
it's not just, you being here.
That makes sense. I'd never thought of it, but it makes sense that the exchange of money would change the situation.
Mm-hmm. And it all it locks you into, he'd be able to like if he ever wanted to sue us
Sure.
as like a tenant,
Sure.
he'd be able to live there for however many months the court case would go on.
What a
And
riot.
so, but this way we could have been like, hey, you're out. We put your stuff on the curb.
Yeah.
And he's got no rights.
Yeah.
So there's a little hint for everybody out there if you ever
Yeah,
decide to
right.
start
Take notes.
renting out a room. I can't believe that Airbnb is as popular as it is, because as extroverted as I am, I cannot fathom a stranger in my personal space
Yeah.
coming and going as they please.
Yeah.
I know how I treat a hotel room,
Yeah.
let alone
Yeah.
staying in someone's home. But like Jay Nelson, a previous guest of ours, he has one of the most popular Airbnb spots in Fargo, and he loves it, and it supplements his family's income.
That's great.
Yeah. And they do things like they put locally made beer and lefse in the fridge so that when people come, they're like, oh, look at this, lefse and beer.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine somebody renting space for 2 weeks while they're here for some kind of a business purpose,
Right.
and constantly seeing them come and go from the back steps.
Yeah, I wouldn't choose it.
No, right? It takes maybe if I didn't
Although lefse
live
and
on
beer.
site,
But I mean, that's for the guests, not for the. Yeah.
right? But you'd have to constantly have lefse on hand.
Right. There you go.
Mm-hmm. I don't understand how people who work at the DoubleTree Inn and Suites aren't always 1,000 pounds, because they're constantly making hot cookies all day long.
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I don't work at a place that has popcorn on hand anymore. When I worked at the Fargo Theater, I ate popcorn all day long.
See, I felt the soda was the real killer to me, because I would I'd have 3, what probably equated to a couple of 2 liters of Pepsi every day when I was there, because it was just free at the fountain.
Didn't you get tired of it at some point, though?
I mean, yes, but the dopamine hit you don't get tired of. And when you're stressed and working, you're like, that customer yelled at me. I really need something right now. And I'm not a cigarette smoker, so I couldn't like go outside and do that. So it was always just, oh, hey, Pepsi's right here. And the burn feels so
mainlining
good.
Pepsi.
Oh, it was good.
You're the second person I've ever heard describe chugging Pepsi as the burn.
Right. No, people who are like solid Pepsi drinkers, we all feel the same way about it.
Like this guy was like a 55-year-old construction worker who talked about how like that's the pleasure he gets from drinking Pepsi is the burn.
My dentist has a poster on the wall that ranks sodas and other drinks for level of acidity.
Yeah.
And the lower it goes on the list, the higher the acidity. And Pepsi is one above battery acid. And there's nothing below Pepsi besides battery acid in this chart. So like Coca-Cola, coffee, all these other sodas, apparently they don't have the same acid content that Pepsi does. So it makes sense that Pepsi drinkers would be used to the burn. Literally burning me, which is not great because I have GERD, but I love Pepsi.
What is GERD?
Acid reflux disease.
Esophageal reflux
disease. Acid reflux disease, basically.
Did you ever have a roommate situation that just didn't go well?
Yeah.
You don't want to talk about it?
Yeah. It's over.
Yep. That's fine.
No. We came back around, but
after you were no longer roommates.
No, even when we were roommates.
Really?
Yeah, things turned around, thankfully. But I don't even remember the order of events anymore. But I know that there was some pancake batter left in the refrigerator for a long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a dirty dish that was left in the sink for a long period of time. And I was responsible for one, and they were responsible for the other.
You had a real butter battle happening there.
We both had a stubborn streak, and it went for weeks. We had science projects.
Isn't that amazing?
Pretty massive science projects. And somehow, I think we're both reasonable people. I don't know. We'd have to survey people maybe to find out. But we stopped talking to one another even for some time.
What you've just described is far cleaner than any place I've ever lived at any point in time.
Well, that's
whatsoever.
Not all that was sitting out and about.
Okay.
These are the
because I heard ad dish. There was ad dish.
Grossest.
Well, I mean, it's sort of.
Well, there were other dishes that came and went.
Got it. Okay.
Right. But that one.
There was the I am not washing this blankety blank.
That one stayed.
Sit on the counter.
I had a roommate once who got mad because I got rid of he had butter that he used to make toast. And not a cover on it, just on a plate that was out by our toaster.
Yes.
But for a while, he stopped eating toast. And he got mad at me because I got rid of the butter. But I told him the butter had dust on it. Like it had collected a layer of dust.
Yeah.
That you could see. And he's like, you owe me a stick of butter. And I was like, I don't think I do. I just don't think that I owe you a stick of butter.
Wow.
Right? Let me give you a scenario.
Imagine my face picturing dusty butter. There's just something wrong about dusty butter.
You know what was really wrong?
I mean, those
are skin cells, basically,
those
right?
don't go together.
Yeah, right?
Dust and butter.
Mm-hmm.
You just scrape off the top layer.
Yeah, the protective layer.
Just put, that's
it's like a cheese rind.
Do you like the movie Mother?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. It's one of my all-time favorites. Oh, it's too green.
Yeah.
The TV's too green. So at one point, I got a 2-bedroom apartment all to myself.
Yeah.
It's just me living there. And so I did the thing where I had an office, right? But that office was just for a revolving series of friends.
Yes.
In this 2-bedroom apartment, one summer, I had 4 friends who needed a place to crash for the summer. And so 4 people lived with me in this 2-bedroom apartment.
Not at the same time.
All at the same time.
At the same time.
Yeah. And one of them, who was a previous guest on this podcast, the same one who left a dirty room, slept in my guest bathroom every night.
Like in the bathtub?
No. What he
Just
did is he called it steaming. And so he's a guy who enjoyed a good beer. So he came home most nights a little pickled.
Yeah.
And he would turn the hot water on and put one leg into the bath, but then lay on the cool tile floor. It's kind of how like a bear cools down.
Okay.
And so he steamed. Well, He was in that bathroom using it as a bedroom for 5 months. I finally hired someone to help me clean my apartment because it was so awful.
Yeah.
And she was a girl who had recently graduated from high school, and I had been her improv coach. And so I was like, I'm going to give you $150. So she cleans this place, and when she gets to that bathroom, she starts sending me text messages of the things she's finding in that bathroom that are utterly bizarre. One of them was a giant plastic platter with a bone on it. And I was like, oh my God, for the 4th of July.
What kind of bone?
Yeah, right? We made a picnic ham.
Okay.
And so that dude took the picnic ham on the platter to this room and like ate it down to the bone.
And left it there.
And then left it, like put it under the sink. Like
All
no one was going to
right.
ever see it.
All right.
There were empty cans of SpaghettiOs.
Okay.
That it was clear someone had just been using a spoon to eat SpaghettiOs, not warm them, just straight out of the can. But the piece de resistance, the moment where she called and goes, I'm done. I want my $150. I'm done. She decided to clean the toilet in there. And there's a toilet brush.
Mm-hmm.
And she opened the little caddy that the toilet brush was in, pulled it out, and then almost vomited because somebody had at one point plugged the toilet and used the toilet brush to unplug it, but not clean it. And there was, I kid you not, a mushroom growing on this toilet brush that was about the size of a small pancake.
I'm glad I just refilled my coffee.
Yeah. It was the rankest, most disgusting thing. And at this point, like that guy came home that night and I was like, dude, you got to find another place to live. I am now the guy who has an apartment where there is a poop mushroom growing.
Yeah.
I'm like, this just can't happen anymore. And I found the remnants of the ham.
I wish the audience could see John's face right
In
now.
the same space. Yeah, I was
In
just
the same space.
I was just going to ask for a moment of silence, but that would like cause me to like picture this room.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Don't forget, it's a
can we
cat.
talk
Was
about
this
the weather
was this the
or
warthog? The
sports
warthog
ball?
friend? Okay,
Or
yeah.
What was that? I'm sorry.
can we talk about the weather or sports ball?
Actually,
or,
Yeah.
I do know something I do want to talk to you about because I was this morning I was at Theater B. We just had Giving Hearts Day, so we were all signing these thank you cards and talking to Carrie and Pam about, hey, John's coming into the studio today to record with us. And Carrie said, ask him about Africa. And
ask me about Africa.
I'm assuming that's where you were for the years you were overseas.
Yes.
Was that a part of because you're a deacon in the Lutheran Church, correct?
I am.
So was that a part of that, or was that tied
of.
into something else?
Kind of a part of that. Yeah. So my family lived in South Africa it depends on who you ask. I lived there for 4 years. Tessa lived there for 5 years, and our kids split the difference because I came back to start a job earlier. Yeah, so we worked with a program called Young Adults in Global Mission, which is kind of like a 1-year Peace Corps experience for young adults that have any kind of relationship with the ELCA Lutheran Church. So even if you've only gone to an ELCA college like Concordia or St. Olaf or Augsburg or Augustana, you could apply for this program. And there are, it's called Yagam for short, which sounds like a vegetable that Robin would have picked up on her way to Sharon's house and the roommate.
What does she show up with? It's
It's Goya.
Goya.
A bitter gourd.
Yeah. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. There are Yagam programs around the globe. So we worked with the program in Southern Africa. So the young adults that we were working with lived either in South Africa or in the small country Swaziland, which is surrounded mostly by South Africa. And then, just those two different countries. So that's what took us there. So it was global service that was through the Lutheran Church. My wife, Tessa, was the country coordinator. So she was the one who was working with those communities and helping with the placements of those volunteers and figuring out how they would serve in some way, shape, or form in each of those communities. But it was really more about their relationships than it was about the work.
Okay. Are you still in contact with anyone that you met while you were over there?
Yeah.
That's
Yes.
awesome. See, that to me,
Yeah.
I've only traveled abroad twice.
Yeah.
But it's and the thing that I take with me every time I come back are like the friendships that I've made that I would have never run into them on even like Facebook or something.
Thank goodness for Facebook and WhatsApp.
Right.
It's hard to stay in touch with people in some ways. In a meaningful way. I mean, we were talking about like living in roommate situations. It's hard to live a life with people and then kind of move away and stay connected in a
it's almost like you're describing what
in a
it
significant way.
It's almost like you're describing what it feels like at the end of a show.
Yeah.
And it's not always with Theater B because we all are very close and we work together a lot, but just the notion
I think there are some similarities.
You get together.
It's this immersive thing.
Right. You're spending like all this time with each other. You really get to know each other. You're making this shared product together and then it's done and then you just kind of scatter. And sometimes you maintain and other times it's just you're still friends, but you're not doing the weekly keep up to make the friendship continue in that way.
Right.
It's weird to feel that intimately close with people for a small short period of time and then just scatter.
Yeah.
That's why I like doing Santa Land because it didn't really feel like that for me with you afterwards.
Because we saw each other.
I still just see you regularly now.
Well, and I want to go back to Africa in a moment, but like also we should
let's go.
Tucker and I lived together for a while too.
We were roomies.
How did that go?
It's fine because I was on the third floor and he was in the basement.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We were
you had
both-
like a buffer zone.
Yeah, big time.
We were both living with my dad at the time. So this was shortly after high school for me, and you were only 1 year ahead of me. And so
after I moved out of that place with those other two guys, I immediately moved in with
and Dad was spending a lot of time in Florida with his wife at the time. And so like we actually just had the run of the house to ourselves. Even Natalie Deutsch lived with us for a little bit too. And that was fun. But the memory that we always bring up is just when we would order pizzas from different places and see who got there first. And whoever got there first would get the bigger tip.
Nice.
Tucker's dad had two identical couches pushed back to back in their living room. So one side faced a fireplace and the other side faced where the TV was.
Okay.
And what we would do is just turn those couches into a V shape. And I would order from Dwayne's House of Pizza and Tucker would order from Happy Joe's. And Dwayne's House of Pizza coming from all the way in South Fargo, all the way to North Fargo.
Right.
And the night we watched Pulp Fiction on DVD was the worst because the guy from Dwayne's got there and walked up while the Happy Joe's guy was pulling into the driveway. So there's this weird like
What are you
like
doing
rival gangs
here?
meeting each other. And
They break into West Side Story.
right, we both put like a $5 bill down, and that was the tip that went to the driver that came earlier.
We still tipped the other one like a regular tip,
just
but like
wasn't
the
as big.
awesome tip went to the first one, which is so weird.
Nice.
We shouldn't have punished them.
No.
It should have been like, oh, I have to pay your tip for that guy. Like that would have made far more sense. But
Right?
instead we made a driver look like he missed out on an additional $3 because of that hockey team.
Right, he
that
was
came
super
through
super
and
sad because a hockey team came in and really ruined it for him.
Here's the thing. Here's the
funny.
thing about roommates, though, too. For me, is some of my friends, JJ being one of them, are ones that I know that if we had to do a temporary roommate situation, I know it would be fine.
Yeah.
Because some
Yeah.
friends we're all such complete adults.
Yeah.
That we would give each other space.
Yeah.
We would be really considerate. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes you wouldn't even know the other person's there. Mike Rezel's another person who, when I did poker tour stuff all the time, we would get rooms together, and half the time I'd forget he was there.
Yeah.
And he'd forget I was there because we were so good at dividing it up. Other people don't have a sense of a true boundary.
Yeah.
So they'll go, oh, it must be totally okay for me to be playing Sports Center at 2 a.m. at
Right.
full blast in this
Right.
hotel room because that's
Right.
what I'm used to when I go home
Right.
by myself.
Yeah.
So you can luck out with some people, but those are also people who you know this is temporary and we're both moving as quickly as we can back to not being roommates again
Agreed.
because we need that.
Our family even did that. So we sold our house much quicker than we anticipated when we were moving to South Africa. And our friends, David and Kathy Hunstead, said, well, come and live with us. And we were like, no, we couldn't do that. And they're like, no, seriously, we have 2 extra bedrooms upstairs. It's a floor that we rarely use. I mean, unless we're having like family come stay. There's a bathroom up there. It'll totally work. And after they're saying no several times, very Midwestern, right? We said, okay. So we did it. And we actually lived with them for, I think it was 3 months. And it went just fine. We shared cooking sometimes. We shared meals. We shared some experiences together. But then we also had plenty of times where it was like, okay, no, you're living that life over there and we're living this life over here. And then we ended up doing it twice because when we were in South Africa, Tessa's mom was dying of brain cancer. So we ended up coming back to the United States and ended up staying with them. And she ended up rebounding, which we didn't anticipate, which was great because we had that extra time.
Right.
But then again, we ended up staying with our friends, Kathy and David, for another few months. But there are some people where that, that can happen, even for someone like me who's a massive introvert.
It just clicks. And along the lines of being an introvert, because I am one as well, is your wife an introvert?
She is.
And so even when you're living with your partner and your family and people who you just
and our kids are too,
and you just love unconditionally, but how does then a family of introverts both live together and honor each other's introversion? Like, how do you get away from each other when you need to? Because it's a need. It's like, it's not just a want. It's not like, oh, I prefer it this way. It's literally, I need to not be talking to other people right now because I need to recharge my batteries. How do you do that in that environment?
Yeah. Well, we live with some privilege. So we have spaces that we can go to, It's not like we're all in a situation where the kids are sharing a bedroom and so we do have a spare bedroom that's an office. We also have an unfinished space down in the basement where, Isaac can paint or Fee can write, or I'll go in there sometimes. So we do have multiple spaces and we're fortunate for that. And especially when the weather's nice, then somebody can be outside too. Our family joke is that our dog is the only extrovert, and it may be true. True. Tula may be the only extrovert in our family.
When I'm in a mood where I need to be an introvert, but I can't, like I don't have a room to go to. Yeah. That's usually when walking happens for me.
Yes.
But in the wintertime, that's just just no go. There's just no way to do that. But going for long walks with headphones in is oftentimes the thing that I need to do as well. Even just for like 30 minutes, just to take the edge off of whatever stress I'm feeling. But what do you do then since you're an extrovert?
Well, my wife is an introvert. And so it causes some friction between us because she wants to shut the shades and every night should be an
close
night
it on
for
down.
us.
Yeah.
But my lifestyle just in general with my duties from the radio and, the fact that I own a comedy business that entertains strangers, I find myself in places where I need to be out and big. And so we've kind of have this agreement where if I have to go to an event that she's like, I don't want to sit there by myself for 45 minutes while you're, glad handing and all this.
Yeah.
I've got a substitute partner I can bring out, and it's Britta Nelson, who's been on the podcast, because Britta is extroverted as well and is great about bouncing around. And so there have been a few times where she's been mistaken for my wife, and it's like no, Jill's back at home tonight.
Yeah,
but it causes issues for sure where Jill's idea of the perfect night is the fireplace on, we can watch a movie together. We're both sitting on the exact same couch, next to each other because she wants that closeness and that tightness. But to me, it's like, no, I want to spread out and let's have some people over for a board game that we've never played before where we get too emotional during. And she's like, that sounds like hell to me. And it's even little things like, I was invited this last summer to give a sermon at her church.
Yeah.
Their pastor retired. You can listen to a final fellowship. Is that what we called it?
Maybe. I'm not sure.
With Dale Emery, who is retiring for the fourth time.
Go to jjmeetsworld.com and click the religion button, and anything dealing with religion will pop up.
Okay.
And so they invited me this last summer. After Dale retired, they had a month before Pastor Tim started.
Yeah.
And so they're like, we need to fill these 3 Sundays. Why don't we ask Jill's husband? He loves to talk in front of people because none of the other parishioners wanted to get up there.
Yeah.
They hated that idea. And there's only, 20 active members of their church at this point.
Yeah.
And they were like, nope, we would rather shut the door for the entire month than to do that or just have an endless potluck. So I had the great pleasure of doing that, and I had so much fun doing it that they asked me back again. In fact, tomorrow from the time of this recording, I get to go give another sermon up there while their pastor is on some just absolutely, to me, insane. It's like 100-mile marathon where you have 48 hours and you walk this many miles and then you ride a bike for a little bit. But they do this all the time. And you're out in the wilderness. It just sounds nuts to me.
Wow.
But he's like, I'm going to be gone. Would you come do this? And I think that's great. And so Jill's like, I get so nervous when you go up there because I'm worried for you. And I said, I can fill 15 minutes. Like, don't worry. Like, I can handle this. I was like, I've got a couple magic tricks I can do.
I thought she was maybe going to be nervous about what might come out of your mouth.
She's not, because she knows that I can read an audience like there's no tomorrow.
Ah, excellent.
And I'm also, even though I love improv, preparation is a big cornerstone of who I am.
Good.
And I'm a firm believer in a church is not four walls. A church is the community that it builds.
Yes.
And so like both times that'll be part of my talk here, So in this one, I'm going to talk a little bit about how in Corinthians, they have this, if you sow sparingly, you reap sparingly.
A little preview here. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Of course, this will come out after your sermon, but
right. Yeah.
anyways.
So spoiler alert. But for what I really like is the fact to talk about, say, like, you don't need to be 100% the life of the party at all moments. But what you do need to do is be 100% present in every choice that you make. So I'm very excited about it. Like, I derailed our conversation quite a bit, but
this is how it goes.
I really feel like there is a place for the introverts in the world. There's a place for the extroverts, and we just need to find the middle. And each side can't wish the other one to be more like them. And I think that's important because, we need rats just like we need golden doodles in this world. They all serve a purpose. Now you decide which one is which.
Along these lines, I actually don't know what the position deacon is. I'm not a Lutheran, so I don't actually know the structure of the the church. So what is the position of deacon, and what are your responsibilities within your parish?
Yeah. Well, I don't have a parish per se. I work at Concordia. I'm a campus minister at Concordia.
Okay.
So deacon is a recently adopted term for the ELCA Lutheran Church. But it's been widely used within Christian churches in a variety of ways for centuries. In general, the common thread is that deacons are focused on service.
Okay.
So whereas a pastor or a priest or a reverend oftentimes has at the center of their work or call or their sense of identity is worship, and frequently sacraments, whether it's, communion, or different churches have different sacraments, right? Baptism, for some churches, marriage is a sacrament, what have you. For deacons, it's usually about service. So it's usually about community. So this actually has everything to do with what you were just saying, JJ. So my work has to do with how we do and be community. How do we show up and live well together? So it has to do with what you were just saying, and it has to do with being roommates too.
Yeah.
So how do we do and be community well?
Roommates on planet Earth, basically. Yep.
Exactly.
Tough for an introvert. Like, how do you get away from the people?
Yeah, it's a little hard at times.
On planet Earth sometimes.
I get tired sometimes. Sometimes when I have to describe my work, I describe it as service. It's like, how do we do service well? How do we engage with our communities towards the common good, or for the good of our neighbor? Would be a really common Lutheran way to talk about it. The idea of neighbor is really important within Lutheran theology. All of our neighbors, how do we show up to that neighborhood well and respect all of our neighbors? But layers below that, my work has to do with how do we live with justice and mercy.
Okay.
So it actually has everything to do with what you were just saying, JJ. How do we show up in a way that we can each be fully present and respecting the gifts and the challenges that we each walk with in a way that makes space for all of us. That's kind of what my work is. So what does that look like on a daily basis? I will meet with individuals. I do work with programming such as trips. Like this spring, we have a justice journey that's heading out to New York City in observance of the 50th year since the Stonewall riots to look at questions of queer justice and injustice. What's changed and not over the last 50 years and what's queer advocacy look like now. So I'm helping to support making that trip happen. Last fall, there was a trip that went to El Paso and focused on border immersion and questions of citizenship and, who gets to cross the border and not, and how does that impact people's lives on both sides of the border, United States-Mexican border specifically.
There's not a lot of people worried about Canadians coming down
so much.
from the north. Gee,
Not so much. And I'm pretty grateful that border's pretty open so that I can, head north at any given day.
Right.
And then I also work with like orientation. I work with student groups to help them collaborate well together to make space for recognizing what people's gifts are and what they bring to the table. Those kinds of things.
Do introverts flock together, which is a weird thing to say because you're introverted, but do you find that like college students, like if you're an introvert, do you find other introverts when you're in a social situation that you're kind of forced into?
Not necessarily. Personally, some of my best friends over the years have been extroverts. And I think we have to be careful about the term too, because people use it differently. Mm-hmm. So if we're talking like Myers-Briggs, which is one of the ways that people talk about introversion and extroversion, our son just did this in his 11th grade careers class, took the Myers-Briggs.
I think I just did this like a couple of weeks ago too.
So in Myers-Briggs terms, introversion and extroversion is mostly focusing on where you get your energy from. Mm-hmm. So it's not about your social skills. It's not about whether or not you enjoy being with people. It's about where do you gather your energy from. So when you need to recharge your battery, what do you do? Which I think is mostly the way that we've been talking about it.
Yeah. Because I still need social interaction. I still need relationships with other people.
Well, everybody does.
Everybody does. It's really, for me, certainly, I define it by what recharges me.
Yeah.
What saps my energy versus what gives me energy.
Yep. So I don't know that that's true. I don't know that that's true. That introverts or extroverts flock together. I don't know if I've experienced evidence of that.
I don't know because I don't work with kids in college, which I feel is the first time in a person's life where they are asked to make a firm decision about what their personal choices are.
Sure.
Whether it's
oftentimes they have more freedoms than they've had before in terms of what circles they move in and situations they put themselves in.
Even time management.
Yep.
You get it's that first step towards who you are going to be because you've been pretty programmed. Even if you have a household that doesn't have rules in it, you still fall under that household during that time. You fall under the guidance of whoever is supposed to be guiding you. And you can rebel from that, but you're still rebelling from a structure that's been put to you. So you get to completely decide in that first step. So I feel like college or that age range is one of the most important times in a person's life because first of all, you're allowed to fail without any kind of parachute, which can be so strengthening and terrifying at the same time.
All the above. Yep.
When you succeed, you truly succeed. And then you realize how little high school prepared you for what the real world is like.
Maybe we should do a sequel podcast. Come on over to Concordia and
I would love that.
Interview some Concordia students.
I'd love
Let's
that.
do it.
That'd be fun. Like the person who's just
I think we even have a sound studio. So
do you?
Yeah.
Well, we can pack this stuff up too. And
let's do it.
Our Keurig machine goes anywhere that we do. So it's just, we make it easy.
Absolutely.
So John, I'm just looking at the clock here. We're winding down. First and foremost, Theater B, the roommate playing until when?
It plays through the month. So it closes on Saturday, February 29th, I think is the date. So it closes the last
Making
Saturday
use of
of
that
February.
leap year. Yeah.
Right?
Good for you guys.
Right? So then the middle weekends of the run are Thursdays through Sundays, Thursday through Saturday evening performances, Sunday matinees. But then that last weekend, it just runs Thursday, Friday, Saturday, ends on an evening performance, which is
when
great.
are you guys doing the salon?
That's on the 23rd.
I can look it up here real
I think
quick.
it's Sunday the 23rd.
Those are one of my favorite shows to go to at Theater B because
Yeah, it's Sunday the
talkback
23rd.
is so much fun.
Yeah,
With
I'm
any
looking forward
show.
to that.
Do you know who your guests are yet for that?
I don't off the top of my head, but
I don't yet.
We'll just
I
go
haven't-
anyway. It's going to be awesome.
yeah,
You're gonna
it is
love
always. I always go catch that. I love hearing the audience interaction from it. It's the moment where you really get a sense of what audience members got out of it,
Right.
and you'll get analysis that you didn't even occur to you during the production of the show. It's very, very interesting to hear that.
And I love that the invite, unlike some other theaters that I've worked with, the invite is spread wide open to anybody who's ever seen the show or has yet to see the show.
Just show up. You don't have
Right.
to have paid a ticket that day to come
So
in.
the running time is about 2.5 hours. So just come 2.5 hours after 2 hours and 15 minutes after the curtain time, and you can come to the conversation.
Yeah, and there's usually refreshments and snacks.
Yep.
So
Oh, yeah.
who doesn't love that?
right?
right.
Anytime someone says refreshments, I'm like, oh, RSVP yes to this event.
You know what I
Mhm.
almost liken it to? It's almost like we're doing, when we do that, it's almost like we're doing a podcast without recording it, because you get a lot of the same thing where you get, conversation that's taking its time.
Yeah.
And you can really digest it. You know,
Yeah.
it's not the kind of conversation you get in other places.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you really hear some really interesting viewpoints and ideas. And I've seen ones where we've had healthy debate, but I've never seen one turn negative or devolve when people disagree. It's really interesting to find people who go see a show and then take away completely different things from
Yes.
it and then share that with each other in that setting. It's really interesting and cool.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
I was in a play that Theater B did called Hand of God about a possibly possessed puppet. That's up to you as an audience member to decide that.
Yeah.
And I remember on opening night, there were 2 nuns who came to see the show, and they had
Excellent.
what do you
Habits they were
it
wearing
wasn't
there.
a full habit but they had the hat, the nun hat
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
They weren't flying
And-
nuns.
In the first 15 minutes of the show, there was a point that really hits, right? And I heard one of them audibly go, "Oh no." Because I don't think that they knew the show that they were getting into at the time. But bless their
Yes.
hearts, they stayed through the entire show
Yeah.
versus some people who got up and left because they were very offended by what was going on. But that salon was so much fun because I got to hear, everyone's interpretation of what's
Yeah.
going on. And
Yeah.
it is ambiguous, right? And so
Right.
at one point, I think there was the question of just out of curiosity, show of hands, who thinks that there was a demonic possession here? Who thinks that this kid was suffering from a severe mental breakdown?
Right.
And I mean,
Right.
it's 50-50.
Yeah.
And that changes the way you look at a show.
Absolutely.
I thought it was so much fun. I love
Yeah,
the
this is a
salons.
really interesting script and story too, in that I think I already said that parts of it are funny and parts of it are not at all funny. So how people ride that is interesting. I think the ending, I'm not going to give any spoilers, but in terms of the ending, I think that's open to interpretation.
This is unequivocally my favorite performance of both Carrie and Pam's that I've
Really?
seen.
Is
yeah,
it?
It's my favorite. I mean, I've liked everything that I've seen them do, but they've never really had the opportunity to bounce off each other in this
Yeah.
way that they do in this
Yeah.
one. I think they're perfectly cast.
It's a great
I think
ride.
you picked the right person for the right role. But especially,
I think so, too.
But especially Carrie does a couple comedic beats that I've never seen her do before.
And that says something because they are both incredibly funny.
They're phenomenal.
And they've done a lot of comedy.
Their comedic timing is great, but I think the Carrie's character can actually play off of her personality
Yeah.
in such a way, and
Yeah.
she's and the change that her character really has the major arc.
Yes.
Pam's character also has an arc, but
Yes. It's much more
it's
subtle.
Carrie's character that goes through dramatic change.
Yes.
And she just kills it. Both of them are so
Yeah.
good in the show. So I would just say, even just on a level of acting, go watch these 2 actors who are both just at the top of their game right now in an amazing script in an amazing show.
Yeah, I can promise anyone who's listening to this that you will laugh or I will treat you to the beverage of your choice.
No, there you go.
You heard it here first.
Right?
I want Ecto Cooler. They don't make it anymore. So good luck.
I'll have to find a way to invent it then.
There you go. There you go. Jon Leiseth.
You got it.
Leiseth has been our guest today. And if people are interested in do you have a Twitter account that people could follow? No.
I'm
Do you
on
put up billboards?
Instagram, but
Instagram, but you don't
Yeah.
want a bunch of weirdos following you on Instagram.
yeah, I don't know. Should I be doing Twitter? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
No, okay.
no.
Kids
It
are
is
talking about TikTok
It is a
these
dark
days.
place.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm not
Yeah.
going there.
Twitter's a dark place. So is TikTok.
I see the impact of TikTok on my own kiddos. So
Have you ever heard of
That's
the term
plenty.
like Finstagram?
no.
Okay, so it's people who make fake Instagram accounts or essentially a secondary where they can be awful and like put it out into the world, but the idea is like
I've not heard of it, but I'm so not surprised.
Right, they're like private accounts and you only let a couple people see it.
Right.
So I accidentally requested like someone's Finstagram account and they told me, I will never let you see that because I don't want you thinking about me like this. And I was like, I thought you were posting pictures of like sandwiches you eat. Isn't that what it is? And they're like, it's my Finstagram. I get educated every single day by the youth of today. And I get worried that I am falling so far behind every day.
I know I am.
Yeah. You know you are?
Oh yeah.
It's good to acknowledge that though,
Right?
isn't it? Because
I
at
think
that
it's
point
great
you just,
because then like there was a day, I think it was about a year ago, I think it was March 2019, where someone used the phrase technologically savvy in reference to me. That was like a red letter day.
yeah.
That's a big deal.
Did you put
We
like
still talk about that at work. Like that day when I was technologically savvy.
I wish my parents would have a day like that, either of them, at any time. Please. Please have a day where you
I
become...
think I was using SurveyMonkey or something. I don't remember.
I was so happy at work a couple weeks ago because I
Yeah.
put a USB cord into a USB plug, and
Yeah.
I did it right the first time.
Yeah.
Not where you're like, oh, it's upside down. And I told people about it. I was so excited. And the younger people at my work were not impressed. So I've hit that point.
I'm impressed. I'm here for you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Like, I'll talk about that for a long time.
All right.
John, thank you so much.
Thank
and
you.
Great work on The Roommate. Go out and see it. You can get your tickets at theaterb.org. A huge thanks to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty for sponsoring this podcast. Folks, if you're looking to buy or sell a home, contact Natalie Deutsch today because Natalie Deutsch is not only a previous podcast guest, she's somebody who's going to care enough to sell your property for top dollar. She's also going to find you the best price possible if you're purchasing a new home. Last year on average, Natalie earned her clients $4,000 over list price on their homes and sold them faster than the market average. On average, Natalie's selling a home every 3.74 days. That's 2 homes a week. Those numbers don't lie. Find out why Natalie is one of the top agents in this entire market. Get a hold of her today, Natalie at hatchrealtyfm.com. You can also call 701-388-9338 or go on to livefargomorehead.com. That's livefargomorehead.com. Read all of her amazing reviews and then listen to her episode of JJ Meets World. Thanks again to Natalie Deutsch of Hatch Realty. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode of JJ Meets World and would like to help us continue to produce 2 new episodes every week, you can donate to our Patreon. Check out patreon.com/JJ Meets World and donate today. Even as little as $1 a month can go a long way. Visit our website at www.jjmeetsworld.com or hit up our social media. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all the sites the kids are using these days. If you'd like to stay up to date on new episodes of JJ Meets World, you can find us on iTunes, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, YouTube, or wherever you consume the podcast that you love. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by checking out www.moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, go to linebenders.com, and you can find direct contact info for JJ. If I had a twin, I would call my twin my womb mate.